In this tutorial, I'm going to cover a solution for a particular problem you might have when you're working with the substance designer materials in the Unreal Engine. And in this case, it's where you want to get the textures out of the Unreal Engine that have been created by an imported substance designer material. So for in this case, I have this little snake dude or whatever, and he has a material I created in Substance Designer applied to it so I could change his colors and so on. And I lost the original source file. So normally if you wanted to export the targas or a bitmap of the diffuse and the normal map and so on and so forth, you would just export it from the Substance Designer itself. But I've lost those source files. I can't modify it. How do I go about changing exporting these final bitmaps for these images here for these channels that I need? I found a solution here in right here, by AlienChrysalis in the Unreal forum. He's the only one who he or she gave the solution to this problem, and props to that individual for doing that, because it was a major problem for me. So this is how you go about exporting these images, because normally if you have an image file in the content browser of the Unreal Engine, if you right click on that image, you can simply go to Asset Actions, Export, and you'll see that you could save as type as a TGA, as a targa. You don't have that option when it comes to images created by an imported Substance Designer file. So how do we go about doing this? It's not terribly difficult. All you have to do is we're going to create a new material. We don't use the materials that you've applied to your static mesh or your skeletal mesh or whatever. We're creating a brand new material, very, very simple, very basic. And just go ahead and right click and create a material and call it temp or whatever you want to call it. Double click and open that up. And we're going to tear that off here so we can just throw these images into it that have been created by my Substance Designer instance factory here. Drag those into here, and everything, the textures that it creates are based on the outputs that were created in your Substance Designer file. So whatever outputs that thing had in it are going to be generating textures. Okay, in this case I created an output to create a base color. I created a packed mask, which is a combination of an emissive mask, a roughness, and an ambient occlusion, and I have a normal map texture here. I'm going to go ahead and hook everything up. Let's just see, here's my base color. My red channel is my emissive color, and green is my roughness. Blue I had for my ambient occlusion. Your textures are obviously going to be different from this one. Okay, there it is. It's all hooked up. Very simple. I'm going to hit apply and pause the recording while the Unreal is chewing on that and trying to get it all applied to the world. There we go. It created a little temporary material here for myself. I'm going to go ahead and close that. And the temporary material, we're just going to leave it aside for a moment. Now I have to apply this to a new object. I'm creating a plane. You could probably use another object, but just a simple plane, it helps us visualize it a little better. This is just built into the Unreal Engine. When we find this plane, we've dragged it into our scene here. Go down below transform where it says static mesh, and there's the plane static mesh. Go ahead and click on the browse to plane in the content browser, the little magnifying glass icon. You'll find that it's here alongside of the other shapes that you could have dragged into here, like a sphere or cylinder or whatever. There's plane. We're going to go ahead and double click it to open up its static mesh editor. We open up the static mesh editor here. I'm going to tear it off so that I can see it again, like I did similar to how I did it before. There's the material slot for the plane. Right now it just has a default world grid material applied to it. Go back in your content browser, hit back a couple of times to go back to your original material here that you had, your Substance Designer imported material. Now that I'm there, I go back to my temp material that I created, drag and drop that onto the material slot, and you can see here, there it is, okay, that temporary material that I've created and hooked up. Very, very simple. Again, never use the ones that are far more complex and everything, because things aren't going to work out right. Now that I have that on there, I'm going to go ahead and go to Bake Out Materials. It's at the very end here of this these buttons on this tool panel here. Click on Bake Out Materials, and actually I missed one step that I got to go over here. Let's close that and put that on docket. We're going to go back to our our original substance graph instance. This is where you set your parameters that you have access to for your substance material, and make sure that your output size is as large as you can make it, so that it fits your needs, because you don't want to have it set to like a 256 by 256, for example, because that's all the resolution you're going to get on the exported targets. So I have mine set to 4096. I'm happy with that. Just go ahead and leave it. Set it to whatever you want. Now we go back here to our static mesh editor. Bake on materials. What it's going to do is it's going to take all of the textures that are hooked up into this material here. It's going to bake out their separate channels, which is fantastic that it can do that. There's the diffuse by default. We're going to create one for the emissive. Change this to roughness, and the last one we're going to export out is the ambient occlusion. Now we change the texture size here for sure. 4096, change that to whatever it is that you want it as, 2048 maybe or something. Go ahead and hit confirm. What it's going to do is going to take a while for it to bake these things out. It's going to seem like it's stuck, but just give it a minute, especially if your computer's a little slow like mine. I'm going to hit pause while it's doing this. Okay, and it is finished, and it seems to have just silently did whatever it's going to do, and I don't see anything different, right? I'm going to head and I'm going to dock this back up here, go back to our main window, main tab here. The content browser doesn't look any different, and if you go back to where you were, you can either hit forward 2 times and go back to where that plane is hiding, or if you've lost that for whatever reason, just select the plane and go to static mesh and hit the magnifying glass again. There's the plane, but now it has the material on it because you just placed it on there, and it created another new material here. It's given it its own little name with a little serial number of some sort on there, and it also has created, behold, look at that, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 textures that it's created. These things are the ones that you've hooked up in that first material, which we named temp, if you recall. And I have here these, I have my ambient occlusion, my base color, and so on, my mask, my emissive mask, and my roughness. So now these are actual bitmaps. They're no longer, they're copies, they're duplicates of that. Here's the originals, okay, here that it created. No, that's not it. Back it up. There we go. There it is. There's my originals created by my substance file. Here are the new ones. All you have to do now is right click on each texture and go to Asset Actions and Export. And there you go. You can name it whatever you want, and it's a Targa or whatever these other image files if you want. Targa is probably going to be your best bet. And now you can export them. Before you couldn't. That is so great. So thank you again to AlienChrysalis for posting this. It was a huge help to me, and I hope that this video is a help to you. And if you like what you see, then like and subscribe. I occasionally try to put on things, little helpful hints and problem solvers, things that you're going to beat your head against the keyboard trying to solve. And it's always nice that somebody else can just solve it and is kind enough to put those out there. So that's purely what this is about. So I hope this helps you and makes your day a little easier. And good luck, and I hope this works for you. Thanks a lot.